The first question, Mr. Chomsky, comes from Christos Goudreau. How have your ideas on universal grammar changed over the years? Are you more or less convinced of the theory now than you were initially?
Well, there's a lot of confusion about the notion universal grammar. Universal grammar had a traditional meaning, but in modern linguistics, last 50 years or so, it's had a technical meaning, which is not unrelated to the traditional meaning, but is not identical either. Universal grammar is just the name for the theory of the genetic component of the language faculty. I mean, transparently, there's some genetic component, right? There's a reason, say, why my granddaughter reflexively identified some part of her environment as language related, which is no small trick. Nobody knows how to duplicate that. And then more or less reflexively picked up the capacity that we're all now using. Whereas her pet, say, kitten or chimpanzee or songbird or whatever it may be, with exactly the same inputs, couldn't even take the first step, can't identify part of the environment as language related, obviously not the later steps. Well, there are two possible answers to how that happens. One is it's a miracle. The other is she has some specific genetic capacity that's like the capacity that had her grow arms and not wings, let's say. Just some fixed, or had a mammalian visual system, but not an insect visual system. Now, this is not controversial for anything except human higher mental faculties. For some reason, when people investigate human higher mental faculties, they have to be insane. You know, you can't accept the approach that we take to everything else in the world. The kind of a methodological dualism. Everything else in the world we study by the standard methods of science, but when we talk about human higher mental faculties, we have to become mystics. So therefore there's a controversy about the existence of universal grammar, which means a controversy about whether there is some genetic property that distinguishes humans from everybody else, which leads to to the ability to doing what we're now doing. But there shouldn't be any controversy about that. The only question is, what is it? Well, there have been theories about it from the 1950s when these studies began up till the present, and it's a living field, so they keep changing. So in that sense, yes, my views about universal grammar keep changing. Say when Anne walked into my office as a graduate student and told me I was wrong about everything, and so okay, my views changed. You know, but in that sense, sure, there's going to be constant change until the field disappears or is dead or something. And there's a long way to go. These are not trivial questions. At the sort of general tendency of change, not every linguist would agree by any means, so it's a personal opinion. In the early stages, when the first question was asked seriously about 50 years ago as to how we are capable of doing what we do all the time, how are we capable of understanding, producing expressions which we've never heard, which may have never been uttered in the history of the language, and do it over an infinite range, various strange properties that they have as soon as you look at them. How can we do it? The only answer seemed to be that each of us has a highly intricate computational system in the brain which yields these very specific results. But that then poses a paradox, because it must be the case that we all humans have the same genetic capacity with marginal variation. The reason is, if you take a child from, say, a hunter-gatherer tribe in the Amazon, and the child is raised in Cambridge, Mass, may just become a graduate student studying quantum physics at MIT with no difference from anyone else, you know, and conversely. So we all have the same capacity, and it's more or less understood why. The capacity developed very recently in evolutionary time, and probably in some window between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago, something like that. And that's just a flick of an eye. So whatever happened never changed, except extremely marginally. So we're all fundamentally identical for all practical purposes. Human genetic variation is very slight anyway, superficial differences, but